It's time for Cats Talk Wednesday. Small town and big city joined forces. Vinny Hardy of Lynch, Kentucky, and Terry Brown of Louisville, Kentucky, team up to give you free-flowing, laid-back sports talk. Focus on Kentucky Wildcats, as well as pertinent information in the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball.
We are another Wednesday. No games, no problems. Cats Talk Wednesday TV. Rolling on through summer. It's that time of year where ain't nothing happening like we was talking about before we got on here. But yeah, we get on here and chop it up a little bit. And that just means we're that much closer to football season. When you get here, the wait is...
well, look, I'm ready for the Olympics.
So
I'm ready for that.
Got jerseys for every occasion, literally. Literally, people. If y'all didn't know, now y'all know. You know, the Ray Allens, the Sean Kemp's, Mitch Richmond. It's appropriately themed. We got Team USA as well. So good stuff right there. And they beat Jokic and them today, right? I think they were playing Serbia earlier.
Yeah, playing Serbia. I have a feeling that they're the favorites, but because I know that the Spanish team has pushed them a little bit, but recently, but we'll see. I like the Olympics. I like watching the stuff that I don't ordinarily watch.
Gasol brothers aren't walking through that door. That's when it was like 2012 was a battle, I believe, for the gold medal. Mark and
in
Paul.
2008.
Yeah.
That's when Kobe ran through. Pau Gasol's chest. If you've seen that documentary on Netflix about the 2008 Redeem team.
Exactly. Because both the boys were born in Olympic years. Mike was born in 2008. Jen was born in 2012, and the missus was pregnant with both of them those summers, and I just remember both of those matchups with Spain in both of those years. Boy, it was in 2008 and 2012. But Spain is taking a little step back. France might be trying to formulate a little something with the guys they keep putting in the league. You got Wemby and Sarr and all these guys. France trying to make a little push to be the next world power.
And it sounds like Tony Parker has taken it upon himself to set up this French kind of operation. Like he went back and set up all this infrastructure to help France kind of make that leap forward. So shout out to Tony Parker.
That's it. And he started the first wave. It's crazy. We've seen his career when we were just hearing about him. They got this guard from France that's coming to San Antonio, and then he came and lived up to the hype, and him and Duncan and Ginobili, and now he's retired and over there with the next generation of Frenchmen.
That's right. Oh, oui.
For sure. Hey, coming to y'all courtesy of the BS3 Network, live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know if we're on Twitter right now. So I got to have a premium Twitter account, so that's different. So we might not be live on Twitter this evening because our Cats Talk Wednesday account is not premium. So you can find us on YouTube and Facebook, and apologize for any inconvenience. See if Michelle talking about you, TV. I see you got jersey and swag for every occasion. Michelle says, and socks. So absolutely. Sock game is unrivaled.
Yes. Yeah. I've got socks. Yeah. I was and hats too. I was looking at something on Amazon, like a display case or a thing for hats, but you could only get 40 into one of them. And I was like, well, I need 4 of those. So whatever it is, what it is. It is what it is.
Exactly. We got to wish Michelle a happy, I think I saw on Twitter around 39th wedding anniversary to her and her other half. think it's 39. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but happy anniversary to you and your husband. You said he spoils you to death, so that's great that y'all knocking on almost 4 decades together. Congratulations and happy anniversary. I always appreciate you commenting and watching and retweeting and 39 years. So yeah, congratulations. Absolutely.
Yeah, Terry loves love, so
that's it. So more golf together, more Arizona to Wisconsin trips together, and all that good stuff in the coming days to both of y'all, you and Mr. Morton.
Absolutely.
Like we said, TV, it's that time of year where ain't a whole lot happening. Got the Olympics coming up. That's gonna bridge the gap a little bit for a couple weeks. The WNBA, no baseball because it's All-Star break. So it's that time where you said what Bomani and them was filling time with what today?
Vacations that they had been on. So I mean, but he did talk about Bomani went to Barcelona. Was talking about how they don't even speak English wherever he went, but he did hear "Not Like Us" come on, and people that don't know English know "wop wop wop." All I'm saying is, Drake, that's an L, baby. That's a worldwide L, man. Like
international, man. This
and there's a clip. I'll send it to you. FAMU, the Marching 100, one of the famous HBCU bands, teased a little bit of their arrangement of "They Not Like Us."
The fighting Roy Wood Juniors.
That's right.
Those rattlers. So, those rattlers.
So if you thought it wasn't going anywhere, woo, buddy, Drake, you gotta take this L. You just gotta lay low, man.
It's laying low right now, but it's fixing to hit him again in the fall. This is his little break.
Yeah. Because once they start marching with it, it's gonna be all man.
This is the downtime, Drake. Sorry to break it to you, man. This is as calm as it's gonna be for you right now.
Because it's gonna go all the way through until Grambling and Southern play in the Bayou Classic. And that's in December, thereabouts. Then it might lay low for a little bit, but it's gonna get nominated for a Grammy. Which means Drake can't go to the Grammy Awards. Not gonna catch me sitting there listening to a diss track like that. But that's not even the worst of the diss tracks. It's catchy as all get out. Now we've talked about this before, but the Meet the Grahams, that is the one that I'm like, oh goodness. Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. What? And I think Susie, I'm sorry that man is your son. Like,
see, that's that. You watch the documentaries on John Randall when he was lined up across from opposing offensive linemen that were fixing to block him, and he's spouting off, "How's your wife?" and how's Jennifer, and how's Ted Jr. doing? And dude's like, how? And this is this pre-social media, and they're like, "How's this dude I'm supposed to block? How does he know my family?" It's like Brett Favre and the Packers and all those dudes shook, and he come back to the huddle. How does he know about my aunt? And he reading the media guide and getting all of that. That's what happened. This is what this is right here. It's that John Randall level research.
Let me just say this about John Randall. He went in the same year into the Hall of Fame, the same year as Jerry and Emmett, 2010. And we have seen John Randall mic'd up. We've heard all those stories. And he came out. When I saw that he was there, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And just as low-key and monotone, wrapped it up relatively quick. Like, I was a little disappointed. Like, I mean, do however you want to do, but I was like, okay, all right.
I watched those.
Little disappointing in that one.
watch those NFL Network, A Football Life. It's like their version of
Yeah.
30 for 30, and right now, because ain't nothing happening, they're just replaying a lot of them. You got one on Emmett, they got one on Jerry, they got all the Hall of Famers. But saw the one on John Randall from where he came from nothing in Texas, like literally, and then it interviews his wife where they meet, and she's she didn't know he played football, and the whole thing when they start talking, I'm a football player. And she's like, I don't like football players. And she was like, I'm a lawyer. He said, I hate lawyers. He said, we perfect for each other. And so they start, dating ever since. But she didn't know anything about him at all. He was peak John Randall. He's peak eye black.
Yeah.
He all of what you see when he's mic'd up, and then just completely couldn't be a better dad, couldn't be a better husband, couldn't be a better father, and just low key when he does, not trying to tear Brett Favre's head off. Totally different dude.
That's what you should be, right? Like you shouldn't let your job define who you are, right? You do your job one way, then you go home and you do like that's what it's supposed to be. It's not, and that's what upsets me. Not upsets me. I shouldn't say upsets, but like we hold up Michael Jordan as the way we want our athletes to be, but that's one way to do it. The stories come out and it's like, you don't really have to be that competitive, do you? Like, shouldn't you be able to turn it off a little bit? Because in any other walk of life, like, all right, you need to take a break. Whatever your job is, like, you should be able to shut that off and be a regular human being.
Yeah.
But we see that, a lot of times, especially with these football coaches, I don't even have an email address. Like, what do you, okay, whatever, man. Like, and you ask them anything going on in the world, like, it's hot. I don't even notice. I'm focused on the next. Like, come on. Like, come on.
Exactly. Yes. It's just, hold up at the office. John Gruden is I think Joe Gibbs, all those guys. Tony Dungy is the exception to the rule. Guys like that, because they let Mark Stoops lets his guys drop their kids off, at school and go pick them up. And, normal day-to-day life type
normal
stuff,
man. Like, I understand the margins are very small, but give guys, you should be able to participate in the society. Like, nothing you do should be all consuming.
Right.
To me.
Absolutely. We got a guest backstage in the Biz 3 Network green room. Been on with us before. He is co-wrote a book. Him and Alan Cutler came on with the Cut to the Chase. This dude's done all kind of stuff. We'll just let him come on and talk, but he's got a new book out right now, Name, Image, and Murder. Got Dr. John Huang backstage. We got to talk about this new book, the Cats, football and basketball, all that. Doc, man, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Vinny. Hey, Terry. It is always an honor to be on Cats Talk Wednesday. You guys talk about a lot of serious topics to UK fans, but you don't take yourself too seriously.
Can't do it. No, can't do it. Gotta stay humble there, Doc.
But you guys always bring on guests who also have a little bit of a different take. So I hope I fit into that category. I feel it. We're going to have a good time tonight. I think it's going to be exciting. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Gotta talk with the big one first. Another book that you come out with, and this title. I mean, this interesting title of this book. So just give you the floor and tell us all about Name, Image, and Murder.
Name, Image, and Murder. Isn't that a killer title, first of all? I wanted to capitalize on all the ongoings with the landscape of college basketball right now with name, image, and likeness. I thought to myself, what better way to attract readers than to kind of parlay myself into that that landscape by calling this thing Name, Image, and Murder. And to my, well, not so much surprise, because I hope for it, but people have kind of latched onto it and jumped onto it. But Vinny, this is my first time in terms of writing fiction. I've written some other nonfiction books, mainly about UK sports, but this is a whole different ball game. I didn't know what I was getting into. I still don't quite know what I'm doing, but it was a heck of a lot of fun. The whole premise of the book is you've got this and remember, this is fiction now, your imagination, but this Hall of Fame basketball coach gets brutally murdered during the course of a championship season run. This book is kind of a whodunit, who did that dastardly deed, but it's also an exposition on the college basketball landscape. I'm giving the reader two things for the price of one: a whodunit murder mystery plus an action thriller on college basketball. If that's not enough, I don't know what it is. Great summer reading book. That's my pitch.
Man, a whodunit 2-for-1. Basketball and murder, and just because the title, I mean, my first thought, I mean, I couldn't help it. I went Baylor and Dave Blitz. I'm like, I went dark, John. I'm sorry. And I was like, man, and then it's just cool hearing, we got our network, VS3 Network. The title definitely got Ben's attention. So see there right off the bat.
There you go. I'm pushing product. That's what I'm here to do now.
So you said, even though you've done other work, I mentioned the book with Alan Cutler, Cut to the Chase, kind of his biography. You said that you didn't and still don't know what you're doing as far as, writing a fiction book. So what are some of these things that are still foreign to you or that you're not really sure how to handle it, or first time things you're encountering as you're doing?
Right. Here's what's totally different about fiction and nonfiction. You guys are in media. You realize the importance when you're actually reporting on facts to make sure that they're correct. You want to get out the word out in a timely fashion, but the bottom line is you want to make sure that you're reporting something proper. Mm-hmm. With fiction, you aren't constrained by that element, which really frees you up. It allows your creativity to come out. It's not like you're purposely writing about things that are abstract. In fact, a lot of my book, I think the appeal of it is because it has so many things that are relevant to Big Blue Nation, so many things that are relevant to my travels as I go to these different venues. I take the reader on a trip through all these SEC venues as this fictional team is playing all the teams like Georgia and Alabama and Arkansas and all these SEC venues. So I try to add an element of realism to all of that. But in terms of the plot, in terms of the character, you can go all out in terms of that. A lot of times what I ended up writing about were subjects that I was thinking to myself, I wish this would happen. And then because it's fiction, I was able to kind of write it out. I was able to go ahead and make it up, so to speak. I'd be sitting at a press conference. I'd be hearing John Calipari talk. And once again, this is fiction. It's not about one particular character. But I would be hearing him talk and answering a question, and I'd think to myself, wouldn't it be great if somebody actually called him on that and took this question in a different direction? I'm able to do this in this book. The protagonist is a sports writer. He's able to kind of question these coaches on all these things that you and me and Terry Brown wants to be able to say and ask, but we haven't had the chance to do it. In this book, the hero, he gets a chance to be able to do that stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. So the big difference is, on one hand, when you're writing for a newspaper outlet, you're reporting facts and statistics and people. You're talking about real life characters, and there are ramifications and percussion associated with all of that. But when you're doing fiction, you really have the freedom, you're liberated, you're able to kind of go off on these all different directions, but still have the elements of realism of living in, like I say, a big blue nation, or going on to the SEC road venues, or talking to all these different coaches. And, the coach gets murdered. He's not one particular person, but he's kind of a composite of a lot of these coaches that I've encountered over the years.
And so do those settings kind of, when I think of the great books that I've read, the settings where it takes place actually becomes another part of the character, like another part of this grand story you're telling. I think one of my favorite books, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, where that whole community becomes like another character. Like, so I'm rambling a little bit, Doc, but is that kind of working as well?
Yeah, and
from place to place.
And if you've been to those places, like if you've been to New Orleans, then that really comes to light for you. A lot of the setting does. If you're a big Kentucky if you're a college basketball fan in general, and specifically if you're a Kentucky basketball fan, I think this will really, really take you into that particular element. For example, I start out chapter 1. It's a press conference. TB, you've been there. Benny, you've been there too. And so this, this basketball coach, this is his very first press conference. He's being introduced to this fictional fan base, and the first question out of the sports writer's mouth isn't some softball question like, "Hey, coach, how'd you end up being here? Can you describe the elements that resulted in this job?" No, he comes out and fires a fastball right at the guy's head and simply asks, "Coach, do you think the end justifies the means when it comes to recruiting athletes?" That kind of sets the stage. That's not something that I would ever ask. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think the timing is proper. But in terms of getting right into the narrative, right into the action, I think it really sets the stage. It draws the reader into that. At least I hope it does. And at least the people who have read this initially, they seem to really enjoy getting right out of the gate. Not all this wishy-washy stuff building up to the main plot and characters, but getting right in it right out from the get-go.
You mentioned that, part of the reason writing this book, you're able to call the coach on some things or ask some things that, tougher questions. But even in real life, I think you might agree with this too. You've kind of gotten that reputation as a dude that will ask tougher stuff. There's listening to the press conference that I'm not at, you'll hear a more pointed question. I know your voice. I'm like, oh, that was John asking that. So you kind of, I don't know, maybe universally, but kind of have that rep as a guy that will step on out there and ask some stuff that a lot of people
I'll take that as a compliment, because when I ask a question, it's because I want to know the answer. It's as simple as that. But I have always tried to do it diplomatically. I've never thrown a fastball at a coach simply because I had an agenda. I don't think I've ever done it in a personal fashion. I've always tried to be very, very diplomatic in terms of how the question came out. And I think because of that, the coach realized it and was able to kind of give an answer that everybody appreciated. This character in this book it's got a lot of similarities. There's some Vinny Hardy in him. There's some Terry Brown in him also. There's a lot of people in there, but there's obviously also a lot of John Huang. If there weren't, if you didn't think there were, then you'd be nuts. There has to be a lot of me. Right. So there's a lot of the way I feel about NIL on here. There's a lot about how I feel about the transfer portal. There's a lot about sports gambling that I've thrown into here, and I do it through this character, this protagonist. So yes, he's a little bit of me. He's able to ask those questions, but he's very, very different from me in that he is not diplomatic. He's going straight for the jugular. He's trying to get a reaction, and he does have an agenda, which from a reading standpoint, I think does make it a little bit more interesting.
So you mentioned that,
because I'm sorry, go ahead, Vinny.
I was just going to say real quick, I mean to cut you off, that you mentioned that, when you're listening to Cal or asking a question, or I wish it could be this, or I wish somebody would ask this, and you said there's a little bit of Terry in here, there's a little bit of Vinny. I heard you on Tom Leach say there's a little bit of Larry Vaught, or a lot of different media
Yeah.
members. The fact that it's fiction, did you sometimes catch yourself veering into, whoa, I'm a little bit too real. Let me steer it back to being fictional, even though I'm using some real.
Very perceptive, because I think the Kentucky media beat has been very collegial throughout at least my association. Everybody is very supportive. They're helpful. Now they're still trying to do their thing and get their stories and so forth. But I don't think there's a heck of a whole lot of animosity among there. The last thing I wanted to do was kind of stir the pot from that standpoint. I don't want anybody to get offended, but we are who we are. And there are some personalities and some of these reporters that are in the book that you can't help but say, hey, I know he's talking about that. If you accuse me on it, I'll deny it until I'm dead. All right. But that's part of what makes this fun. That's part of the imagination. And I know I've got the standard disclaimer out at the beginning. This is a work of fiction. Any events similar to actual happenings or people are a product of either my imagination or your imagination. I'm sticking to it. That's my word. I'm sticking to it.
It's like Orson Welles with the Citizen Kane. Everybody in the world knew who he was talking about, Hearst, but he was like, who knows who this is about, that kind of thing. So I certainly appreciate that, Doc.
Although now that you did mention it, there may be one or two things where not so much you, Vinny, but maybe Terry will kind of stick out. There might be some people who actually be able to pin him out on some of the things. But, he and I, we go back a little ways. We shared a hotel room in that Boise trip. So I feel I have a little bit more leeway in terms of kind of getting on Terry Brown.
Hey, Terry sticks out. Terry stands out.
I try. The one thing I do admire about you, Doc, is like Vinny said, I feel like you ask the questions, but you never make it about you. And what I mean by that is you can tell when people ask questions in those settings because they're trying to get a soundbite. They're trying to, like a prosecutor, lead the coach into saying something. But I never felt that you did that. And Vinny, I've seen John, like it's not just Kentucky press conferences, but you covered, I don't know if you remember this, Doc, it was out in Idaho, but it was Sean Miller's last game at Arizona. It was the DeAndre Ayton game where they had lost to Buffalo. Yeah. And there were a few Arizona people there, maybe a couple of national people, but it may have been just the two of us that night with Sean Miller talking. And I was just sitting there taking it in. And Vinny, Doc asked him a question. And I was like, that to me, that's what a professional should be. So I always tip my hat because I'm like, I got no dog in this fight, but Doc asked him a question.
Well, this is the irony in all of that, Terry, is that once again, I don't remember specifically that episode, but it was probably a situation in which I just wanted to be able to know the answer to whatever I asked. It was as simple as that. And a lot of that comes from my background of not coming through media. I'm a fan. I've always been a fan at heart. I was a dentist, for God's sake, for 30 years. This is the last thing that I ever dreamed about being able to do. So to be thrust into that position where I can kind of have to pinch myself to mean, you mean I get to come to a national press conference and ask Sean Miller anything that I want? You got to be kidding me. And I wanted to be able to take advantage of that, right? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yeah, no agenda other than the fact that I get to ask questions. I'm going to ask questions. I want to know this. I'm going to find out what he says about this. Now,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I was saying now that I know a little bit about how media is supposed to work and etiquette, I think if I went back and listened to some of my earlier things, I may have cringed a little bit. But that's part of the fun. That's part of the innocence. That's part of not knowing what you're doing, being thrust into a new profession and just kind of running with it, almost like I'm doing with this book.
That's the way to do it. Scared money don't make money. I think one of Coach
Well,
Cal's, as we say.
I'm not making any money with this book. I want to make sure that you know that. The royalties after Amazon or whoever takes their cut are minuscule. I'm doing it for the love of game. I'm playing for the name on the front of the jersey, right?
There
There's
you go.
no NBA contract waiting for me in the background.
Well, to get whatever little minuscule that you're going to get, tell people where they can buy the book and give most of the money to Amazon and whoever else.
No. Right now, if you're in Lexington, the best thing to do is drop into Joseph Beth. I understand they have copies there, and pick up. They've always been so supportive of new authors. They've carried all of my previous titles. It's a way for win-win. Support Joseph Beth, support me. You can go and get you a hard copy there. And then, of course, you can go directly to Amazon. Just type in name, image, and murder. It should come up. The responses that I've gotten so far just been overwhelming, exceeded all my expectations in terms of the comments and the interest. But it's summer reading season. It's different. I don't know of too many media members who have actually written a fiction book. Something different. Summertime. Now it's talking season. We're not quite into football just all that much yet. It's a good time. Take it on your vacation. Read it. Relaxing. It's an easy read. Short chapters. It's not brain surgery. It's mainly meant to be a lot of fun. So Amazon.com, Joseph Beth Booksellers.
But is it a root canal? You said it's not brain surgery, but is it like a root canal?
Here's a secret, guys. If it's a front tooth, anybody can do a root canal, right? All right. Root canals have gotten a bad reputation. Right?
There we go.
I want to ask you this because a lot of people, you mentioned, you're a dentist for 30 years. I didn't know you until we crossed paths, at games and in press conferences and things of that nature. So, John Madden has that, 3 distinct phases of his life. He was a coach, the analyst, and then, the whole video game empire. What do you think people know you more for? Being a dentist for 30 years, now what you've done in the media, or now that you're an author and a writer?
Man, either you are a psychoanalyst extraordinaire or you've been stalking me. I was just thinking that the other day. I get fewer and fewer people who come up to me now and say, "Hey, Dr. Huang, you remember you did my braces and all this and that." I think it's just a matter of where you are in your particular life at the present time that people kind of gravitate toward you. I mean, it's pretty amazing. On one hand, it's a little bit bittersweet because you spend 30 years busting your butt doing orthodontics in your profession and building up your practice, and then you retire. It's been less than 10 years. Everybody's forgotten about you. That's a lesson of life. Our legacy is very, very fleeting in a lot of different areas. Life is short. Just like Madden, you've got to jump from different areas to another through those different phases of life. Savor the moment where you are right now, because that time truly is fleeting. But when the opportunity comes to do something that you love, you've got to jump on it also.
Yeah,
there's a life lesson in that, Vinny.
Yeah, that was eloquently stated.
that is a life lesson. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
sure.
I remember when I first started following Kentucky. Of course, they had the Al McGuire and Billy Packer and Dick Enberg on there, and I remember they interviewed Al McGuire once, and he gave a story very, very similar to that. But his analogy was about eating a banana. All right, that hey, when you get a banana, it's nice and firm and ripe. You want to be able to eat it at just the right time. If you end up waiting too long, then that opportunity passed by. Grab those opportunities. You got to eat the banana. In fact, remember that. We'll call this show Eat the Banana.
Eat the banana.
Eat the banana.
Absolutely.
Yeah, eat the banana.
That's it. Michelle says that you went to dental school with her brother-in-law.
Yeah. I remember Joe, and he, I believe he had a twin. And it was one of those situations where I could never tell them apart, but evidently a lot of other people could. But Joe, can't believe it. UK College of Dentistry, class of 1983. Shout out to all those.
There you go. You mentioned how we're, not quite football time yet. Camp's about to start, and SEC Media Days are in progress now. Kentucky will be, on the main stage and Radio Row and all that tomorrow. What are you expecting from the football Cats this year? Texas and Oklahoma are there. Cats go to Austin this year. So what do you expect from football season?
All right. First of all, let me take off my fiction hat. All right. And I've got to put on my journalist hat now, right? I'm a
That's right. We're hardcore
now. Media columnist now. Yeah. Everything that I say from here on in can be used against me. I better be careful in what I say right now. But no, UK football, hope springs eternal this time. Every year. I've been a football fan now for 50 years now, 5 decades. And it seems like every single year I think, okay, maybe this is the year we kind of break through that ceiling. I don't know about this year. 2 things are huge. Number one is the schedule. Everybody's talked about how much more difficult that's going to be. The team could be tons better this year than they were last year and still not have a record to show for it. Texas, Oklahoma coming into the equation. I think Kentucky's trading Mississippi State for Ole Miss. You're thinking, where are those wins going to come from? Second thing, quarterback. A lot of things depends on the quarterback. We don't really know a heck of a whole lot about Vandergrift, right? He's had so few college starts that we don't know. Sure, 5-star coming out of high school. I'm excited as the next guy. But we aren't going to know until the bullets start flying out there. Those are 2 big question marks, schedule and quarterback. Now you throw this, I think they're going to be a little bit shaky depth-wise on the defensive line now also. I guess make that 3 things that are very, very questionable at this point. Let's say 4 things. Can you tell I'm a worrier? I'm worried about all these things. A new offensive coordinator, man. What is it, the 5th one in the last 6 years or whatever, something like that. It's hard to maintain any degree of consistency over that period of time. Football team's got its work cut out for them. My goal, though, is still I want to have a shot at making that 12-man playoffs at the end of the year. I think that's reasonable, don't you? We can't lower the standards that much. I think I want Kentucky to be in the mix. If they don't make it, it's not going to be the end of the world, but I think they should be in the mix to get one of those ladder spots.
That's fair.
Yeah, I would say so. Probably when it comes to football, the one thing that I would hold Mark Stoops to the fire on is it seems like every year we're doing, well, we'll see what this quarterback does. At some point, I just want to see us be able to bring in, recruit, develop, so we can at least take that one piece out of the puzzle and we know what we're dealing with going into the season. That's the one thing. Like the running game, that's been plug and play, right? We've got, Ray Davis going back to whoever you want to go back to. But I would just love to be like, hey, we got a quarterback back there. So at least that piece of the puzzle, that we can check one thing off your to-do list, Doc. That'd be one thing I would like to see. But, like anything else in the SEC, you can be better, but your record may not reflect it. That's the bottom line of what it is. And it doesn't even matter the sport. We talked baseball. Was that last week, Vinny? Last week we talked, baseball and the College World Series, and the SEC is just a brutal march no matter what sport or activity you're playing in.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Kentucky baseball, I fulfilled a bucket list item when I went to Omaha. I've always wanted to do that, College World Series, and to do it when your team is in it was something else. it was everything that I thought it would be. From a baseball standpoint, though, I think Mingione is kind of in that danger zone where Stoops was in, where he's almost going to be a victim of his own success now. Expectations have been raised. I think from here on in, Omaha is going to be a legitimate goal year in and year out. He still may be able to do it. The guy's a whiz in terms of transfer portal stuff, and he seems to have the magic formula to be able to do that. But with expectations that high, you're bound to miss every now and then.
Did y'all cross paths in Omaha out there? Did y'all run?
Yeah, quite a bit. There were very few that ended up out there. I couldn't believe it. The Herald Leader, I'm not, well, I guess I am kind of slamming them, but their plans, from what I heard, were not to send anybody until Kentucky if they made it to the finals. They didn't have anybody there. I mean, here is the hometown newspapers, and I didn't hear the reason. I assume it has to do with finances. But with as many of the guys as they have writing for them, you'd think that one of them could have made it out there for the only time that school has ever been to Omaha. To me, it would have been a huge, huge thing, but it still shows football rules the roost. Basketball is right up there. Everything else kind of plays second fiddle at this particular point.
Now, I need to ask you a question because you were there covering it in your professional capacity. What was your reaction to the homer on that Saturday? Because I thought about maybe covering it, but I'm like, I want to take this in as a fan and soak in all of, what we can get out of Omaha. But what did you do when the home run was hit?
Yeah, it's weird that you asked me that, because now that I've had a chance to kind of look back on it, I can honestly say that it was the most exciting moment I've ever experienced as a UK baseball fan. And it wasn't just me either. I went and we were talking afterwards with longtime cohorts like Dick Gabriel, and they were just as shocked. You know, Coach Keith Madison. I mean, I think he told me he had been to like 32 consecutive College World Series as either a media member or a fan or whatever. And it was the most exciting time that he had ever seen during that. I was probably a little bit too new to really take the significance in when it actually happened. I was just like, oh, all right, Kentucky won, we're moving on, But once we were able to kind of reflect on, boy, did that really just happen? It really was the most exciting time I've ever had as a UK baseball fan. I'm not a diehard one. I haven't been following them a long, long time, but I hope to here in the future. They've hooked me. It's a wonderful, wonderful sport. I hope it doesn't get squeezed out in this revenue sharing distribution type that's coming in. I don't think it will, because in order to keep up with the Joneses in the SEC, baseball is right up there. I mean, you've got football, and baseball and basketball are real close second, both of them together when you take the SEC overall.
Absolutely. So sliding on into basketball, because that's right around the corner too.
Yeah.
So you got the guys back playing in the TBT. You got Mark Pope and his new roster. So just your thoughts on everything that's going on as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, such a big change. I mean, during Calipari's last days, I don't think that there was a scenario that could have played out any better than it actually did. Because if he had stayed on, the fan base was as divided as it has ever been. And it was a no-win situation. If they had done well, half the people would have said, see, I told you so. The other half would say, meh. Look, it's not going to get any better from here on in. You can't sustain it like that. A divided fan base is not who Big Blue Nation is. This is what makes us stand out, are the fans. And I hated it when the fans were against each other. They're at each other's throats. To see them reunited again, that's not saying that we're going to be back at the level immediately. I still think it's going to take a little while. A lot of issues in regard to being able to coach these guys and them playing together. a lot of questions remain to be answered. We're not going to see the John Walls and the DeMarcus Cousins and talented guys like that out there running around. If you expect that, just kind of pump the brakes a little bit. I think we all need to be very, very patient in regard to that. I mean, here's Mark Pope. He's taken a team, 11 of those 12 guys that are on the team now, he's never coached before. He's never won an NCAA tournament game. You know, none of his guys have ever gone to the NBA. This is not going to be the Cal teams of old. Can they be as successful? I don't know. Right offhand, I'd say this first year, probably not. But can they be as exciting? Heck yeah, they can. I mean, their goal is to shoot 35 threes. I'm not quite sure how he's going to do it, but Mark Pope, being supposedly the offensive genius that he is, that's why we're paying him the big bucks. But it's a different brand of basketball. This whole idea of, once again, playing for national title number 9, playing for the name on the front of the jersey, maybe putting this NBA aspirations a little bit more toward the background. As a fan, I really enjoy that. But from a coaching standpoint, he's going to have to walk a real fine line, a real good balance in terms of still being able to get this talent on board that's going to be able to win national championship versus balancing it out with these guys who are very, at least from outward appearances, they're not quite at the same level that Kentucky fans have used to have under Coach Cal. Think about it. But 50 NBA draft picks, 25 of them first round. Those were years we'll look back on and say, wow. And yeah, why didn't he win more with those?
Yeah, absolutely. But isn't this kind of the way it goes, Doc, is, Rupp won his way. Joe B, who I still think is underrated for having to follow up, a legend, not just a great coach, but a legend. Joe B did it his way. So I think older fans like us that have seen different coaching changes and still have this Kentucky success, I think it's these younger kids, because Cal was there for so long, longer than I think anybody going back to Rupp, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so you think 15 years, which is a long time, but honestly, each coach has kind of come in and done their own thing. Do we need to let Pope do his own thing without always comparing to whatever Cal did? Because it's apples and oranges, right?
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, you're absolutely right. But I don't think, especially long-time fans like we are, that's going to be very, very difficult to do because the program tradition is so huge. That's such a huge part of Kentucky basketball. It's natural to compare these different eras. But basketball has changed so much. I mean, the landscape has changed more in these past 5 years than I think we've seen in the last 50 years. So maybe Pope, maybe he's one of these guys who can latch on to this new era. Maybe he can master the transfer portal a little bit more. Maybe he's a genius in terms of being able to pick and choose talent that he's going to be able to blend together. Maybe he's not. Time will tell. The proof is in the pudding. You talked about setting the bar high. He said he knew what he was getting into. He knows what the goal is. The goal is to win national championships. And I think ultimately that's correct. That's what Kentucky fans judge things on, national championships. I think Final Fours are great. I think it's more of a barometer of consistency, how many Final Fours you make, because once you get there, anything can happen. Actually, once you get in the tournament, as we've seen, anything can happen. Yeah. But in terms of what would be adequate for this particular team, I think he's got a whole year in terms of a honeymoon period. I think they would have to be extremely bad. They'd have to lose all the critical games that people have circled on their calendar for people to even start wondering, hey, did we make the right move? Yeah. He's got a free pass this year, but I'd love to see them be competitive in the SEC this year, right off the bat. I'm not saying they have to win it. It'd be nice if they could win more than one game in the conference tournament. I'd love to see them playing on Sunday. And then as far as the NCAA tournament, I don't think it's too high of a bar to say, hey, let's make it to the second weekend. If we do that, I'll be happy. My goal, though, always let's go. Final Four, national championship. But it may be a little bit unrealistic for this team. But I never thought Tubby's team could do it in '98. And that championship ended up probably be the most joyful that I've experienced as a fan because it was so unexpected.
That is what I've been screaming from the rafters, Doc. We don't give the '98 team a lot of love because it flew under the radar, right? But the teams we beat in the Final Four, there was no juice. Utah and Stanford, there's no juice. And you have to tell the young kids especially, like, no, they were really good at that point in time. Like, Utah was a national power, believe it or not. Stanford was a national power, believe it or not. But I'm right there. I'm right there with you. I think with college basketball, this is probably the biggest upheaval since the mid-'80s when the tournament expanded. And then they added the three-point line within a couple of years of each other. And then we saw things start to shift. And then it kind of maintained for a while. Now it's upheaval again. And all I know is Kentucky wins no matter what. Before integration, before the three-point shot, whatever the variation is, we'll be right there.
Yeah, and I think that was the fear, whether it was legitimate or real or not, when Calipari during his latter years, I think the fear within the fan base was truly that, hey, have we kind of lost our ability to always eat? Are we Kentucky anymore? Because that still means something to us as fans. I know when I was in the military and I traveled around, being from Kentucky was different. It was special. You know, there were Alabama football fans. There were Kentucky basketball fans. Those were the passionate fans out there because the history, the tradition, being the program with the greatest tradition in the history of college basketball still meant something to us as fans. We wore that with pride. That kind of bound us together. And when we started to lose that, I think that was what really, really hurt. That was what I was scared of. I was afraid that the fandom was going to be kind of swept out with all this uncertainty about whether Calipari should be the coach or not.
Well, and that was the point I've made. I think it was Billy G's first year, second year, 09. Yeah. North Carolina won in 09, but we're playing Tyler Hansborough, North Carolina. Okay. It's ESPN game day. And they're talking about North Carolina playing for a championship, blah, blah, blah. And I can't remember who the hosts were or anything like that, but I remember them saying, well, what about Kentucky, national championship? And they chuckled and moved to the next topic.
Oh.
That hurt me more than the non-win season. Like, at least the non-win season, there's reasons for it, blah, blah, blah. But as a Kentucky basketball fan, don't be dismissive of me. Like, that hurt more than anything else. It was like, just dismissal. Yeah, just like Kentucky. Like that ain't no. That is unacceptable.
That's why the comparisons to like you're asking if Doc, can people just let Pope do his thing and not compare him to Cal? Well, the standard's been what it's been for so long. Joe B clearly was getting compared to Coach Rupp. Eddie Sutton was getting compared to Joe B. I think the only one that maybe sidestepped and ducked that was Cal, because he came in after Billy G. Nobody's comparing him to Billy. We're just glad we're winning again. So Pope coming in is, fair or not, gonna be compared to Cal, because even though Cal's last 4 or 5 years weren't what everybody wanted, when you're coming in succeeding a guy who's been successful, you're gonna it's just human nature to compare, and it maybe shouldn't be that way. But Cal's the only one that came in and didn't have to, have that scrutiny from the fan base like every other guy has had.
And I think from a personality standpoint, I think Pope has that perfect ability to be able to take that in stride, because he's been a part of the program. He was captain 96 team. He knows the passion of the fan base. He knows how they're looking at his every single move. Whether he breathes or burps or farts, people are going to know about it. And that's the way Kentucky basketball is. People like Gillespie kind of caught off guard from that. You saw what happened. Joe B knew what was going on. He knew about the program. All right.
Tubby got compared to Rick. Tubby got compared more than anybody coming in behind Rick. Fair or not, too. So.
Right. So I think if anybody is able to take an initial punch, and there are going to be punches, there are always going to be haters. You know that, I know that, everybody knows that. I think if anybody's going to let it roll off his back like water off a duck's back, I think it'll be Pope. He seems to be super, super positive. The guy's smart, right? And it seems like that he's intense enough and understands the passion of the fan base enough to realize what's important and what may not be important. There's only so many hours in a day. He's got to be able to pick his battles and being able to address the important things. Ultimately, it's winning basketball games.
Isn't that what it's all about? Just win the games. Yeah. I see we get kind of bogged down in the extra stuff, but as long as you win, that covers everything, right? Because I don't think Patino did anything to endear himself to the BB except win a lot. Right. He wasn't reaching out and, going visit. Like, I'm just going to win a lot of games. Y'all be happy with that. And we were like, all right, cool. Right. And now here we are so many years later and he's beloved again.
And I don't know what would have happened with Gillespie, but let's say that if he had made a big run in his second year and somehow made it to the Final Four or even won a national championship, surprisingly, people would have been praising his methods. Hey, he's a disciplinarian. He's the one that got Josh Harrelson, threw him in that bathroom stall. Look what it did. It changed him around. It turned that guy around.
That's right.
It's all a matter of perspective in terms of wins and losses. I hate to say that, but just like everything else in the world, it's either about wins or it's either about the money. It's one of those two things. That's what drives a train now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True. Flipping back to football, saw the sad news and saw Keenan Burton and George Massey, who I went to school with, posting, lost a teammate. Vincent Sweet P. Burns passed away way too young, but definitely hate to see that. We're old enough to remember him out there.
Yeah, he played early 2000s, something like that. So he had to be He had to be 40. Late 40s maybe? Yeah, wow. Yeah. That's so sad. And I mean, you got the cycle of life and part of the bittersweet aspect of being a longtime fan is that a lot of times you see these heroes and people that were your contemporaries dying off. It's very, very sad. Every time Kentucky basketball loses a member, it's like a part of you is taken. Now, football, there were so many players. I probably didn't follow them quite as closely, but still, every time you end up losing a member, it's like losing part of your family from that standpoint, because your mind automatically goes to their big plays. You kind of see them as they were during their playing days, and you just can't believe that they've been gone this early in life. That's not fair. Did it say a cause of death? Not that that's important, but I was just curious.
I didn't see that. I saw Rich Brooks and other people talking about it, but I did not see a cause of death. Sorry there, Vinny.
43 years old.
Wow.
02 to 04, two-year captain, two-time All-SEC defensive tackle from Valdosta, Georgia. Got drafted by the Colts in 05 in the third round of the draft. Yeah, 40. Even younger than I thought. 43.
Yeah, that's way too young. Sweet P. Burns. What a name. You talk about names. That is a name that'll go down in history.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we don't, sometimes, Terry, we'll talk about, noteworthy people. We had just talked about Bill Walton and Jerry West and Willie Mays. Now you get, Richard Simmons, Dr. Ruth, the lady, is it Shannon Doherty from 90210 TV? So
you don't watch enough movies or TV, but yes, you're correct.
So those three too, just and Shelley Duvall, was it? I don't know what she was on when she was
she was in The Shining. That's kind of her claim to fame.
Yeah, she's been around for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah,
but those
movies and stuff.
Those four just kind of boom, 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 as well. But
once again, life is precious, man.
Eat the banana.
Eat
That's
the
right.
banana, savor the moment right now, and let's enjoy it. I'm loving this hour with you guys. Right? It's living the dream. That's my tagline: living the dream.
It really
Yeah,
is.
savor the moment, and you might end up in Iowa outside of a cornfield, Vinny. You never know where life is gonna lead you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you covering the Bengals too this year, Doc? Or
That's a little bit up in the air. I kind of have to look at my schedule. I've got a lot of church obligations, classes I'm planning on teaching, and it's all a matter of prioritization. Once again, you've got to do what you feel you're led to do and called to do. I'd love to be able to do that. I'm just not quite sure whether it'll fit into my schedule or not. It's a big commitment. And when you're doing things like that, they like you to be there almost all the time. They want the same person. They want a level of consistency. I can certainly understand that, but I'd love to be there firing questions at Joe Burrow. What do you want me to ask him?
hey, this is Terry's boy. Terry roused the Bengals fans up on here because
don't get me in trouble again about the Bengals. The Bengals are fine, Vinny. The Bengals are fine.
Hey, that'll be a good thing. We'll be like Cyrano de Bergerac. I'll have this microphone in my ear. We'll have Terry Brown on the other end saying, "Hey, ask Joe this, ask Joe this, this." That'll get them riled up.
After a gut-wrenching loss to Baltimore, that's when you need Terry.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Niners.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Doc, you also cover women's basketball a little bit, and that seems to have taken a turn from Kyra Elsie. And I hate when there's a coaching change, and it's like, it's one of those things where it just didn't work out. Like, you knew it was time for Cal to go, but you still feel like, couldn't it have worked out? It didn't work out with Elsie. We got new Coach Brooks in. How are you feeling about that? On top of a brand newly renovated Memorial Coliseum. So a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting having maybe more than 2 interns with me there covering the team. That actually put a little bit more pressure on you in terms of the questions, right? Because there wasn't anybody to ask questions afterwards. You had to almost do a little bit of pre-planning and say, okay, if there's dead silence, you don't want her just sitting up there. And then you throw on the fact that you kind of knew that, hey, maybe the end is near, and you realize there's a real live person with a job behind here, and you don't want to throw gasoline on the fire either. But on the other hand, you want to be able to ask the questions that people want to know the answers to also. So there was a little bit of a fine line in being able to do that. So I'm excited about the change. I think it was certainly due. I can't imagine what the expectations are coming out this year. There's a lot of pressure now also with the new Coliseum out there because they've got to capture the fan base right from the get-go. If they can get a little bit of a critical mass, then I think it's going to make it a lot easier. But once again, I don't know anything about these players yet. I'm going to have to do my due diligence and my research. And I've read all the things that come out, and they seem to be good, but we don't know. We don't know anything about the coach. The proof, again, is going to be in the pudding. And you talk about difficult SEC schedules, women's basketball, it's another one traditionally that you're going to have a couple of automatic losses already penciled in when you've got South Carolinas and the Mississippi States and everybody on the schedule there that are going to be tough. Will they be able to recruit big people anymore? That's always been a question ever since the Matthew Mitchell days. You need some size in the middle, and Kentucky has never been able to get any consistent size. They've always played this scattered full court press, wild, no control. It seems like if they had an off night in terms of their effort and intensity, they didn't have a chance to win these games. Are they going to have the bodies? It looks like they are. It looks like that they're on a competitive nature from not only recruiting highly rated national players, but they're going out internationally and getting a lot of interest from some of these international players too. Could be a force. I don't know. You got the Bengals, you got men's basketball, you got women's basketball. There's not going to be enough of me to go around. I'm going to need to get a surrogate.
You're gonna have to hire an assistant.
Yes,
yeah. Anybody out there? I can't pay you anything. All right, but hey, it's a lot of fun sitting down there on the sidelines for women's basketball. Mitch Barnhart, he said there's going to be some new stuff in for media. I wish somebody had asked him what. What perks are we going to get?
For what I've seen, Memorial looks, however, I should know how old Memorial is, but it looks pretty nice on the inside.
It does.
Once it gets done and everything like that for women's basketball, volleyball, and gymnastics to take it all in. So it should be exciting.
Man, if those walls could talk, Terry, I bet you there are a lot of stories from Memorial Coliseum that would be coming out of there. So I'm interested to see what they've done to kind of at least maintain that aspect of the historical significance of the building, because it was ultimately for, what was it, the Korean, the veterans of
Korean War, I
think it was veterans of the Korean War. So I'm sure they'll keep the name, and I'm sure they'll have some reference in regard to that. But in terms of flashy bells and whistles, I want to be blown away from that. To be able to go into a restroom and not wondering, okay, am I peeing into the right trough, or is this the hand washing trough in those restrooms?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right? So, but that's part of what we remember Memorial Coliseum as. That's the Coliseum I grew up with. And there's a little bit of nostalgia that, as an old fart, I always like to make sure that I maintain.
Exactly. Going back to the basketball team, y'all talked about the size that's transferred in here just this year compared to what it's been in years past. You had Macy Morris on here last week, and she, for one, wished she could have had half the girls that are on this year's team playing with her, because she talked about lamenting me being a guard stuck down here, on the block, or trying to help out or trying to bang with Asia Wilson was here with South Carolina. She said, I'm going up against Asia. And she said, I love the fact that there's some size on this team and how much pressure that's going to take off of just the guard spot. So we don't know if they're good, but we know there's some height there, and hopefully it's some talented height that can all be a cohesive unit, once it's time to play. So
it just opens up all these different possibilities when you've got an inside game, both on the offensive end and on the defensive end. And if that translates into wins, that means better chemistry. It means better esprit de corps off the court. I know with Kyra, there were some issues. Every year there would always be somebody who was suspended or somebody who would miss a few games due to disciplinary reasons. And they never really let us know. They always kept it close to the vest. So we always end up speculating. But once again, Terry, it goes back. Salve, it can cover over a lot of wounds, a lot of deficiencies if you get those marks in the W column. And just one other thing about women's basketball is they've always gone out of their way to make it feel like they appreciated the coverage. And
I've covered a few.
From a media member, that makes a difference. I mean, it's not like you're going to write better things about them, but you may. I mean, on certain levels, it's nice to feel appreciated. So from that aspect, I always enjoyed covering UK women's basketball because it felt like that they wanted you there. Now, that's not saying that Kentucky football didn't want you there, but they had so many people covering the sport that whether you were there or not, it really didn't make a difference to them, realistically speaking.
Yes.
And with Kentucky basketball, at the risk of being ostracized and outcast, it's like they never wanted you to be there regardless. They would be happy if nobody showed up and they could just put out their own stuff, right?
and that's the beautiful
you know what I
thing.
mean by that, right?
Yeah,
I'm not going
yeah.
off on a ledge saying
No,
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 not at all.
Mm-mm.
And thankfully, I've been able to take my girls with me and cover some of those women's sports. We've done soccer, we've done volleyball,
yeah.
we did gymnastics, 5,
Mhm.
6 years in a row, different things like that. Those, I'm not calling them lesser sports, but the less publicized sports,
Mhm.
they really like it when you show up to
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah, it's exposure for them.
And then you realize they're working just as hard as the people that play at
Mhm.
Kroger Field. They're working just as hard as the folks that show up at Rupp Arena. And that's why if you look around me, I'm trying to be all cats everything. If it's cats across the chest, I'm gonna support it.
Yeah. Yeah, great minds think alike. That's part of my mindset also. I am at my core, I am a sports fan, but I'm really a University of Kentucky sports fan. I'd much rather watch UK Tiddlywinks. I think I've mentioned this before than I would UConn basketball. I'm just honest with you from that standpoint. When I was growing up and such a big Kentucky basketball fan, one of the main reasons I tuned in to other national broadcasts was by chance if the announcers would mention something about Kentucky basketball. That was the one reason why I watched those games. I didn't really care about who won or who lost. I just wanted an Al McGuire. I wanted a Billy Packer. I wanted a Dick Enberg to mention something about the Cats.
And more often than not, they probably did. They probably worked it in somehow in that broadcast. For sure.
And now you can watch the Olympics and catch a few.
There was always.
It was Al McGuire. Al McGuire, they had it before you, they had it during you, they'll have it after you're gone. It was, there's this famous quote about how Kentucky's tradition is just always been there.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love being able to follow the athletes after they've graduated or gone on to other things too. Now, granted, I'm not tuning into the box score every day like I would if they had played here at Kentucky, but still, they're a part of the program, and I do still feel affinity for those guys. I mean, you look at these guys coming back for this, what I'll call. And it seems like, at least on the outside, they're still very, very intent. They still feel a part of this community. They feel the love that the fans have given them toward during the time that they were here, even though many of them were only here for a very, very short time. They still feel it. So once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat. That is very, very real.
It definitely is. And the fact, they're Willie Cauley-Stein is 30 and got 2 kids, and the Harrison twins are 30. It's crazy
makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Oh man!
Stop the clock! Stop the clock! But it really is just like when I was in my orthodontic practice. I still remember my patients at the age where I treated them. If somebody comes up to me and now they've got kids, and Lord, I've had people I treated who had grandkids now, and it just kind of blows my mind because you don't picture them as adults. I can't picture Willie Cauley-Stein other than the Renaissance guy riding around on his scooter, dyeing his hair that he was during his UK days. I don't want a mature Willie Cauley-Stein. That's not the one I remember.
Exactly. Yep. So that'll give us something else to watch till football comes. That and the Olympics. But they play Friday night on Fox or FS1 or one of those Fox family channels. So Big Blue Nation will get to go to Rupp and watch a little summer basketball. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm actually in California right now. So am I going to be able to watch that? Will I be able to pick that up on a cable subscription here?
I'm a hope so, because I'm hoping I can get it here in Iowa, Doc. It's one of those things.
When we were looking before we started, it said it debuts on the Fox family of channels. I'm thinking Fox or FS1 ought to have it, because ESPN used to. I would flip through it in years past and just catch Marshall and Xavier and just okay, that's nice. But apparently it's going to be on one of the Fox channels.
I should be able to get it then. I'll be upset if I can't, because the one reason I've stuck with Spectrum Cable, and this is either a shout down or a shout out or a shout down, is because I want to be able to get these when I'm traveling on the road. We'll find out.
Yeah.
That was my big ask before I moved, is I've got to be able to watch all the Kentucky basketball games.
Yes.
Whatever that means, that's part of it.
Yeah, I want that plan. Yeah. Sign me up for that plan.
I gotta whisper this, but I'm like, I love you, you love me, but come the winter, I want to watch Kentucky basketball and not just rely on highlights. I'm gonna say that real low. But that was part of it. Like, I got to make this work. So I understand what you're saying there, Doc.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you, Doc, man. Appreciate you coming on. And
like I said, I always love coming on and talking with you guys, and to be able to push product on top of that and make shameless plugs for my book. That's a win-win for me, man. I love it. You can have me on anytime. You want me on next Wednesday? I can come on next Wednesday. But book sales should skyrocket now, right? I'm going to find out the power of Cats Talk Wednesday. I'm going to be checking this now.
You're going to get that Cats Talk boost is what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's it.
There you go. All right.
For sure, man. Well, enjoy California. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and however much or little you cover, Bengals, Cats, women's, men's football, whatever, we look forward to the content. I always enjoy that as well. Yeah. All the best with the book too. Just thanks for coming on to tell us your process and how it became an idea and how you got it rolling and how you're pushing this product from that's, was an idea and fiction, but little doses of some realism, but this is great, man. Name, Image, and Murder, the Court of No Return. So good stuff, God, man. We appreciate it.
All right, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, look for yourselves in the book. You're in there someplace. I'm not going to admit where, but you're in there someplace.
I'm gonna dig into it now.
I am excited to hear what you hear, what you say about it, because once again, these new things you don't quite know. You're kind of hesitant. You're very, very defensive. Am I going to crash and burn or not? And the way it's come out of the gate so far, I'm tickled to death. So I'm hoping you'll enjoy it.
Well, good things come to good people, and you're one of the best, Doc. We certainly appreciate you.
Right.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Doc.
Thank you.
John Huang, Name, Image, and Murder. Yeah, man.
That's what catches your attention.
I think I don't know if you it stepped away or not. I was like, man, Doc, when I saw that title, my thoughts get dark, man. I started thinking Baylor and Dave Bliss. He put that murder in the title.
Oh wow! I couldn't. Yeah, can we talk about Baylor for a second? Like, for the longest time, that's all I knew about Baylor. I knew Baylor because that's where Mike Singletary played forever ago, and then Waco with David Koresh.
Yeah,
yes. and then you get the whole Dave Bliss situation.
Yeah,
which I didn't realize until we were courting Scott Drew. Like, he came in and took over right after that. I don't know why in my mind I had thought that he had, but that's why he'd been at Baylor for 20 years, because he came in, they were only playing conference games. Like, it was bad at Baylor. And then all of a sudden now they got Heisman Trophy winners. They won women's championship, one or two.
Yeah, I think they got a couple.
With
Griner,
yeah.
RG3 and all that.
Right. And so it's like, this Baylor?
Yeah.
Which is just wild, because you don't ordinarily get a lot of upward mobility. Baylor had really nothing to speak of. I think on the men's side, they had been to a Final Four one of those early years when Kentucky won 48, 49, something like that. Baylor had made the Final Four, but Baylor?
Yeah.
It's really weird to be able to change up your lot like that in the world of college athletics. That's what makes UConn so outstanding, because up until the early 90s, neither men's and women's basketball team was of any note at all.
Mm-hmm.
And now here they are with a combined what? See, Gino's got what? Has he got double digits yet? Yeah, he's got 11, right?
I think
He got 11. And then, the men's team has what, 5, 6?
6 now.
Woo!
6 since 99.
Yeah, I know. Which is wild. But
that's every 4 years.
Yeah, man. I think that's what's added to the angst with Kentucky fans as well. Look, man, I don't know what we got to do to make sure that we don't get passed by UConn.
Yeah.
I think for a while there, it was like, we don't want Duke or Carolina, but UConn, and they haven't done anything since right at Y2K. Are you kidding me? Like that's look, if we get caught and passed by UConn, that's going to be a day of consternation among the fans.
And just how they've made me do an about face, because in 99 when they won that first one, I was pulling hard for them. Rip Hamilton and them beat Elton Brand and Duke, and I was like, thank you, UConn. Thank you. And now we're like, somebody stop UConn.
Somebody need to beat UConn. But your team, the Rockets, they got not only a former Wildcat, but a kid from Kentucky that's balling out. Reed is. I wasn't going to soapbox, but I don't need every clip of Reed Shepherd dominating to be a thing about Cal's going to have to pay for his crimes. And at this point, nothing has changed since April, right?
Mm-hmm.
We knew March, February, Reed wasn't starting. Whatever the outcome of the season was, Reed and Rob didn't start.
Yeah.
And there's been speculation of the machinations behind the scenes on why that was. But nothing has changed. One or both could be rookie of the year. Nothing will change.
Mm-hmm.
We had this conversation in February after a couple losses where we lost like 3 straight at home. And we collectively should have figured out, no matter what happens, they're not starting. It is what it is. Okay? Like, nothing's changed. So every time Reed does something incredible, we don't need to relitigate that.
Right. Oh, the Wi-Fi slowing down, but I agree. Oh, glad to see Reed's doing what he's doing. Get TV back on. I was glad to see Houston keep that 3rd pick. There was talk that they were gonna trade down and all this and all that, but glad to see him. And look, I even it's only been 3 games too, first of all, but I even maybe underestimated, in his first game, there was Rockets fans on those Twitter streets, what do you expect Reed to do? How many points is Reed going to get? And, first game, I thought, he get 11 or 12, on 4 of 13 shooting or something like that, and just kind of ease his way into the summer league. I didn't think he would blow up like he did. And, he, the first quarter, he was kind of low key, but he took over and did what he did. I'm just talking about the, Rockets fans. I even underestimated him in the first game. Rockets Twitter was like, what's Reed going to do? How many points you going to score? Had, different ones doing this and that and the other. And I think I replied to one. I said, you're going to get about 11, 4 of 12, just kind of a low key, get his feet wet kind of deal. And then here he is, he hit his first shot and got an assist right off the bat. I'm like, okay. And then there wasn't much happening. And then the second half, we out here, shooting logo threes, We doing the pick and roll, and when the big man drops, that's a bucket. We out here cooking Dalton Connect. We out here putting him on, and everybody came to see Bronny, and then Reed did his thing. So he surprised me, and we've seen him play all year. We seen him in high school, and I still was surprised to see what he did.
Yeah, look, I don't intend on watching any Rockets games because I haven't watched a full Rockets game since the playoffs and the bubble. Why would I watch a Rockets game? But I will. I'm already making plans to go up to Minneapolis, and I'm gonna catch the Rob Dillingham experience firsthand, because my lovely wife was like, Rob might come to Iowa, play for the Iowa Wolves. He ain't coming here.
Yeah.
He in the rotation. No, he not coming. No. Oscar, we tried to catch him, which still frustrates me. The only week he was not in the G League was when the Mad Ants came to Iowa. So I'm like, all right, Reed Travis, I'll root for you. No shade to Reed. No shade to Reed Travis.
Yeah, right.
But my whole thing is, like, other than the starting thing, like, other than he didn't start, what did Cal do wrong as it pertains to Reed Sheppard? A lot of the stuff he's doing in the summer league, we saw.
Yep.
Did we not see this in Knoxville?
Yeah.
Did we not see him seal the deal? Was that Ole Miss, Mississippi State? Like, usually when you talk about this malfeasance, it's, how did this guy not make it? Like, if Reed was only playing 4 or 5 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
But conversely, I also saw him against Oakland not take a shot until 2 minutes left in the half. Like, Cal had him scared and blah, blah, blah. We can put it all on Cal all we want to, but Reed didn't show up that game. I think that's a fair assessment. That's not hate. That's like, we need you to make buckets, and you didn't make buckets. Mm-hmm. Now, all the people, Cal is paying for his sins, right? Like we've talked about for months. We talked about with Doc. Cal was not getting it done. His penalty is he's now at Arkansas. And I don't care what they say in Fayetteville. Going from blue blood to Arkansas is a step down. Like, it just is.
Mm-hmm.
If you the leader of the Transformers and now you the leader of the GoBots, all right, you don't go from Autobots to GoBots. That's a step down, right? Like, it just is.
Yes.
Like,
for sure.
You don't work at the Coca-Cola plant and then you go to the Czech Cola plant. Now, look, Czech Cola's solid for Sunday, for vacation Bible schools and family reunions, but it's a step down.
It is.
It just is. You don't go from the Mercedes plant to the Yugo plant. Mm-hmm. It's a step down. You're both making cars, but it ain't the same thing. All right. Mm-hmm. So Coach Cal's got to pay. He has paid. And now he has to scramble to really finish that last chapter of his coaching career because he's getting older.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he kind of thought he was going to be able to ride off to the sunset with success at UK. That's not happening. That is his penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, he's getting paid all kinds of money. Everybody's getting paid all kinds of money. But it's that last lingering, how do you get remembered, right? How do you ride off into that sunset? Which, bizarrely, Patino's riding off the sunset now. Everybody's they love Patino. They love Patino because they couldn't run him off. He's the one coach we couldn't get rid of.
Mm-hmm. Left a little.
I know. Rupp got too old. That was the thing back then. Joe B ran him off. Eddie Sutton, he had to go, right?
Yeah.
Rick left on his own terms. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, man. I love what Rick was doing. He had built a juggernaut, but still, you only got one championship too.
That's true. That's true.
And if we start dissecting, like, should we have lost to North Carolina in 95? Should we have lost to Marquette in 94? Should he have guarded Grant Hill in 92? Like, we can do that, but the way he left, he did the George Costanza. You probably haven't seen the Seinfeld, but you always, you make a big joke and then you exit. You always leave, you always go out on top, right?
Yeah.
That's what Pitino did. We never saw his downside.
Mm-hmm.
Every other coach, we saw him reach the mountaintop,
Yep.
slide a little bit, and then we ready to get rid of him because our standards are our standards.
Mm-hmm.
Pitino, we didn't get that.
That's true.
Right? It's hard to really crush a guy when you lose a national championship game in overtime.
Right.
Shorthanded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I see my fellow Kentucky fans, Pitino never leave. We have 4 or 5 championships. Y'all are smoking damn crack. Like, what are you doing? Like, you just like, I would say, maybe 1, maybe 2, 5 or 6. Hell no. Hell no. Like, come on. So anyway, like, well, and I know what UConn has done, but that's 3 coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
To think that Pitino was going to win 5 or 6 championships, that's insane. That, like, no, that's like looking back at your high school sweetheart. Like, it would have been great. No, the hell it wouldn't. You had a great time at prom. You went your separate ways. Let it be that. Just let it be that.
Hey, we still waiting for the first coach since Rupp to win 2 to separate. And we got our 8 with 5 different coaches. It's great sustainability that shows Kentucky is not UCLA, stuck and just did a big lump and ain't done nothing since. But and I really thought Cal, and I know this had to drive him. His ego, he would have loved to have been the first coach besides Rupp to have multiple titles at Kentucky. That has separated him from what Rick did and everybody else. He wouldn't have 4 like Adolph Rupp, but he would have 2 in the modern era. And that's even that, we're going to catch UCLA, all the talk at, Big Blue Madness. Wasn't able to do it and still haven't had a coach win 2 besides Rupp. Maybe it'll happen at some point, but he probably thought he was going to do it. And of course, everybody would love to see it happen, but hey,
yeah,
he's paid the price. He's in Fayetteville, and
yeah. Look, yeah, he living in Fayetteville. Let me tell y'all, there's some penance going on because he's like that internet meme, that record scratch. I bet you're wondering how he ended up in Fayetteville saying "Woo Pig Suey." Well, let me tell you. So that's the thing too. Like, he got fired, essentially. Okay, like, he's no longer here. He has paid for his sins. It's time to move on. Every time, I don't need every Rob highlight, every Reed highlight. Oh my God, they didn't start. We all know college basketball. Like, we all know college basketball. Like, what good is it to beat this dead horse? Another thing we need to stop is every time Mark Pope breathes, he gets it. He gets it. He understands. Like, you can have a lot of complaints for Coach Cal. He did a lot of off the court stuff good for the Big Blue Nation as well. He brought in old coaches and former players. You remember that Big Blue Madness when the 2012 banner went up and he brought in some people from like the 48-49 team to re-raise the banner? Like, Cal got it too. Like, you don't need to shade Cal for that.
Right.
The reason, I would say a big reason that Joe B. Hall was beloved at the end was because Cal embraced him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gave him a spot at the games. Like, had Joe B. doing stuff, right? Like, that was part of, oh yeah, Joe B. Hall did win a championship. He did follow a legend, right? Like, we ain't got it. Look, Just be honest. We don't have to lie.
Right.
I
Mhm.
wish Coach Pope well. I hope, as you say, he's the first coach since Rupp to get 2. I hope. I
Yeah.
always hope that. But we ain't got to lie about the guy that came before him
Mhm.
because it's just bad. Again, I have been through a divorce. I'm not going to say that my first marriage, it was all bad. It like, if I kept comparing my new wife to my old wife, new wife be like, won't you go back over there? Like,
Yeah.
at
Mhm.
some point, you just got to be like, all right, that was that. This is now. But every post doesn't need to be, and every clip from practice we get, oh, Coach Pope's teaching defense. Man, look, all the arguments that opposing fans used against Coach Cal for the better part of 15 years, now our fans are saying it. He just rolled the ball out, didn't do
Yeah.
nothing.
Mhm.
I always concede, as Doc said, and other people, like, yes, you look at the roster of talent and you think to yourself, we probably should have won one more.
Mhm.
If we get to one more, okay, I think everybody feels a little bit better, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe Cal gets a little bit longer of a leash. I think for me, I know everybody focuses on 2015 because that was the right. Okay, you get to 40-0. But my money, if you seal the deal in 14, right?
Right.
If you seal that deal, either one of those two, it's a different story. And so at the high level, it's like that's a lot of dudes to not win a championship, right? That's a lot. But you look at each year by year, and you're like, okay, things happen, right?
Mhm.
But all those arguments, like what does Cal do? Look, my brothers and sisters in the Big Blue Nation, you don't reach 4 Final Fours with a coach that doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Mhm.
And quiet as it kept, last 4 years included, still more tournament wins than anybody during his tenure.
Yep.
That's how good the first part was.
Mhm.
That doesn't happen with the guy that doesn't know what he's doing. And we can talk about, well, he didn't get into the analytics and he didn't do all this kind of stuff. That's fine. That's fine. Whatever. I'm not a numbers guy. Whatever. But this, he wasn't doing any. What were we even doing at practice? Just stop. Just stop. Stop.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you break up and you out with your boys, like, you better than her anyway. No, look, just let it go. Her friends are dogging you, and it's like, come on now, like we ain't got to just let it go, man. We ain't got to
Yeah.
do all this. If we are Kentucky, and I believe we are,
Mhm.
and as Doc pointed out, like the standard's been the standard since the 1940s,
Yeah.
then we should be better than this. If we believe the program is what it is, we should say, Coach Rupp, thank you for your service. We'll take it from here. Coach Hall, thank you for your contributions. Thank you. Eddie, see ya, right? Coach Patino, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done. We appreciate it. Coach Smith, Coach Patino, thank you for what you have done. Billy G, we appreciate you. Good substitute teacher. Like, we should be able to have those conversations.
Mhm.
But anyway, I just every single post, like, what was Cal doing? We saw Reed ball out last year. Like, he wasn't holding him back. Like, we could talk about not starting from a team perspective. He did nothing to hurt Reed, which is evidenced by going number 3 overall.
Yep.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I think Coach Cal is going to join that Dean Smith tier of coaches, pretty good coaches, but their lasting legacy is probably should have done more.
Yep.
Because people think that Cal squandered talent. I'm going to point you toward Dean Smith. Like we know what Jordan did as a freshman, right? Hit the shot, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But his last year, 5 NBA players, including Michael Jordan, on that team, and they didn't make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I'll never forget.
That's Kenny Smith. That's Brad Daugherty. That's I had it all memorized.
Perkins
Plus,
on there. Sam
I
Perkins on
think,
there.
I think so. There's and like not just like all-stars. And Kenny Smith, I don't know if he was ever an all-star, but a key cog on a championship team, right? He wasn't just a dude, right? Because he's the one, he went for the 30+ game 1 against the Magic, right?
Yeah,
he hit the
threes for a long time.
Yeah. So that's kind of where Cal fits in. Like, I doubt he wins a championship at Arkansas. I just find that doubtful. Yeah. Will he do enough to make them feel good about themselves? Probably.
I guess it's just a lot of them, when we lost to St. Peter's in Oakland, we're like, kind of like whenever Tennessee gets bounced before the Final Four. And now the same ones that were laughing and snickering when we lost to Oakland. Oh, we've got Cal. He's great. He's a savior. He's coming. Oh, Hall of Fame coach. Blah, blah, blah. Man, you were just laughing at him for losing in the first round for second time in 3 years, and now that's happening down there.
But that's fans. We did it. Yeah. I made jokes when UMass's banner came down and the stuff at Memphis. I made jokes, and you're like, I guess we'll rock with you. And that to me is another testament to how Cal run the program. Was all these other programs getting hit by stuff, including our neighbors in my hometown, and the Cats stayed relatively clean.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. I was like, man, I just remember I was kind of holding my breath. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's cool, but I know this stuff at Memphis and UMass.
Right. And my thing was, if something had to happen, we can't be shocked and surprised. He got a resume. Once is weird, twice is like, that's almost a pattern. So if it had happened in Kentucky, we couldn't have been shocked and surprised.
Yeah, sure couldn't.
I mean, what did y'all think? But anyway, but like I said, I'm all in on the WNBA. The wife and I watch a bunch of different games, not just the Fever. We are Fever fans because of Miss Caitlin Clark being from West Des Moines, like the wife, but trying to catch all of the teams. And Asia Wilson is tough, and like she's really, really good, and
she is dominant. Asia is dominant, man. Just was it Jamel Hill put out who she compare her to, and I mean when healthy, she kind of Embiid-ish the way. The way she plays and the way she can step out and the way she can dominate.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark is kind of figuring stuff out. The Iowa team is kind of getting some wins. Angel Reese's double streak is crazy. I mean,
so there's a lot going on. Like I said, I'm trying to get the lay of the land. I'm willing to admit I'm a WNBA novice. I'm not going to pretend like, I was not watching. When they debuted in '97, I was not as enlightened as I am now when it comes to women's sports. So I've not been watching this whole time, but I'm here now. It's good basketball. Obviously it's different from the men's game because it's not as vertical. That's one of the biggest differences. Is it's not. I keep seeing people on breakaways. I'm like, oh yeah, but they're not going to give you. You're not going to get a baptism. That's not going to happen, right? So you have to find other ways that they do things. I really like the Minnesota Lynx. They've got they run some really good stuff on offense. The Seattle Storm really, really good on defense. And so I'm picking and choosing. I'm not a Chicago Sky fan. They play with a chip on their shoulder. They play like the Detroit Pistons of old without actually winning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that, I think when people are like, oh, the Pistons, like, you can't compare the Pistons to like those Knicks teams and those Heat teams or whatever, because they won. It was basketball first, then we might rough you up. But they never let that chip get in the way of actually playing. Because the thing is, when Chicago is locked in and they're not trying to prove points, they're really, really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is if they stop all the outside stuff and just focus on hoops, they got a very good team. Like Kennedy Carter is fantastic, man. Like, can't nobody hold her one-on-one. She goes by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
She forcing people to play junk defenses and all this kind of stuff. She is phenomenal. And Reese and Cardoso, like the Sky have some pieces. Is one of those things. Their record should probably be better.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
But New York looks as good as any team out there.
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Because you got Stewart, you got Ionescu out there. They got I can't think of the other lady's name, but they got a big three.
Jonquil Jones.
Yeah. I'm telling you, but the Lynx got Nafisha Collier and McBride. Like, hey, there's a lot of good basketball out there. So I know it's like during the quote unquote dead time, but I love watching some of that WNBA stuff. I ain't trying to judge if that's not your bag. Like I said, I'm not as enlightened. I wasn't as enlightened. Old me or young me wasn't as enlightened as older me. So I enjoy watching it.
Absolutely. We hope y'all enjoyed listening to this, and we'll be back next week. Be some more games to talk about. Be another week closer to football season and all that good stuff. More WNBA, and we just going through the summertime. We getting close to 500 episodes. I think we got 2 more, and we'll be there. So have a little milestone on the way, TV.
Sounds good to me.
Plugging away and doing our thing. Got some more guests. I know we got our boy Cameron Mills coming up in a couple of weeks. So, since he fought it, but he's a media member now. So he's in the program. So get his thoughts on the practices and the player interviews and all that good stuff he's been doing. So fun stuff. Rolling on through summer. Y'all stay warm, stay safe, especially when you got stormy weather. I know y'all had some storms up there. And
we missed some we missed some tornadoes the other day too. Monday. We had some tornadoes come through. Missed us. So awesome.
Absolutely. So until next time, thanks again to Dr. John Huang for hopping on here and chopping it up with us. Check out his book, Name, Image, and Murder, Court of No Return. Appreciate TB as always. And we'll be back next week. Thanks to Ben Sutter and the BS3 Network for letting us hop on here every week. And we look forward to chopping it up with y'all next Wednesday on Cats Talk Wednesday. Y'all be safe.